Before we get started, just do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're kept up to date. And now, let me talk about this cancel culture phenomena that we keep hearing about because it gets too silly and too one-sided, and there's too much of a narrative that people are getting away with from one side that I find very problematic. And I hear it all the time. Many now I don't want to. First of all, I don't want to sound like I just dump on conservatives here, just to dump on conservatives or the right wing. Actually, I pride myself on this channel as pretty much being equal opportunity. I go after. Obviously, I go after Republicans and the right because I disagree with what they have to say as a general rule. Does it mean that if you're a Republican and that I'm going to sit there and just tell you to go to hell and I don't want nothing to do with you, what have you? That's stupid. Uh, uh, but I am largely critical of what most Republicans think, as a general rule, politically speaking, on most economic, social, foreign policy issues, you name it, what have you. I find broad objection to that point of view. Um, I go after corporate Democrats quite a bit. Um, Probably almost as much as I go after the Republicans, because what I have seen happen to the Democratic Party um, since the 1980s, and with the Walter Mondale defeat in 1984, and the Democratic Party decided to Reaganize the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Leadership Council became a thing, and they basically shifted the party to the right. And there's a lot of liberal folks that are a little confused when I sit there and I criticize harshly people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or Barack Obama, or criticize Bill and Hillary Clinton, criticize Nancy Pelosi, criticize Chuck Schumer, and they're like, "Whose side are you on?" And the thing about it is the problem isn't me. The problem is these Democrats who are basically taking the talking points and the point of view of moderate Rockefeller Republicans from the 1970s and moderate Republicans during the Reagan era, and co-opted it in as being part of the Democratic Party today. That is not hyperbole. That is fact. So I go after corporate Democrats. I even go after my fellow lefties when they do things that are I'm like, what the hell? So yes, I go after Bernie Sanders when he sits there and capitulate a little bit too much to the Democratic leadership and wanting to play nice too much. And I'm thinking, no, you need to still be antagonistic. You need to make these people feel uncomfortable. But so I'd go after, and look, I'm I am the first, the original. I'm in the 1990s. I can I can assure you that am probably the first online Bernie bro that existed. Okay, I am the first online Bernie bro that existed because I was defending Bernie Sanders in the Socialist Party USA back in the 1990s and early 2000s against the hard left. Instead of the corporate Democrats, it was the hard left within the party. So, and I'm getting kind of off the point I'm trying to make, but there is context to what I need to do. So bear with me. So yeah, I criticize AOC and Squad for doing their refusal of force to vote, and then there is the left in real life that I have to deal with over the years. You have broad disagreements with let's say groups, various groups on the left who may have a Leninist orientation. Now, granted, today in the year 2021, I'm a little more nuanced about it than I used to be. I still generally do not agree with Leninism, and no one's going to make me ever agree with Leninism. I just disagree with it, the whole concept of of what Leninism was and what transpired because of it. Having that said, doesn't mean that I think that Leninist individuals are terrible people and they're to be denounced and to antagonize them or what have you. No, I know individual Leninists when it comes to political activism that have done some wonderful things. We just have a disagreement about which direction politically this country ought to go. And I take a more social democratic position, and that's always been my orientation as a socialist. Under the broad term of democratic socialism, I probably fall closest to social democracy. And if I were to remain as a democratic socialist, tiptoeing into another sub ideology, I would probably be inclined to be probably a social anarchist or libertarian socialist, and I do have a little bit of that in me too. So anyway, I don't want to. I want to go and get started and stop going on and on and on a tangent and being long winded. I just need to explain that. Well, let's talk about the conservatives and people on the hard right. They whine and they cry. Ah, we're being oppressed. We're being mistreated. They engage in this victimization. They think they accuse liberals and the lefties and minorities of they're guilty themselves. They're the victim. They are the ones that are being mistreated. They, even some of them even compare themselves to how Jews were treated in Germany under Hitler, which that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And then they turn around, and call the left the Nazis, which again, that's even more absurd. But suffice to say that's what these people do. And yeah, I know we got liberal identity politics now. I know we have this SJW phenomenon. I know that term's been overused. It's so 2015 and 2016. You got people being woke. We all know the term being politically correct. The regressive left. All that is pretty damn fashionable in today's America. I'm not going to lie, it is. But you know what? Prior to that, do you think that kind of cancel culture we have today? You think this is something new, and that only the left was the one that came up with this kind of authoritarian streak that is actually kind of in existence today? And do not accuse me of being Tim Pool or Dave Rubin for criticizing certain sections of the left. I call it like I see it. It always existed, and it existed on the right. So this is nothing new. It's not like, oh, everybody was just exchanging free and open ideas with each other, and then all of a sudden the left decided to become bullies. No, 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 no. That is absolute bull crap. You had the Christian right, you had anti-communist crusaders, you have soft and you had hard white nationalists, you had homophobes, you had prudish social conservatives clutching their ideological pearls at every single thing in society. Why do you think we have a damn culture war today? Because, and I know people don't like the both sides scenarios, but both sides, they decide they want to have an attitude about everything. So yeah, so that's what it comes down to. So you got many in America today on both sides walking around with a chip on their shoulder, waiting to be offended, and it that's the truth. Even the damn COVID crisis. I mean, you have people walking around without a mask. Look at me. I ain't going to walk around with a mask because I'm an alpha. I'm a strong person. I'm an individual. And you ain't going to tell no government's going to tell me what to do. And you liberal wimps with your mask. I mean, they walk around like that, but during the George W. Bush years, they'll be like, you better support George W. Bush and the Department of Homeland Security tyranny. You better support torture. You better cheerlead our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. You better be glad we have a Patriot Act that's spying on us. It's that's kind of mentality. It's kind of like on one hand, when your SOB is the one engaging in bad legislation, yes, don't dare question our dear leader. But when Barack Obama came along, and yeah, I know, forcing people to buy their own private health insurance is crap. It's bull crap. Yeah, I agree. That I will agree with that part. I just think the healthcare ought to be free, 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 like it is in the UK. And just get rid of those private health insurance companies. But at the same time, when Obama did a little bit of the government interference and what have you, all of a sudden, um, all these right wingers decided to form a Tea Party and be like, we're going to stand against tyranny and the Obama tyranny. But they were supportive of the George W. Bush tyranny, or during the Donald Trump years, when there was threat to use the Insurrection Act, and they were wanting their dear leader Donald Trump to use the Insurrection Act to go and smash down all the Antifa and smash down Black Lives Matter. That's the right wing mantra back then. So it depends on who's in charge at the moment. And so, when the liberals are in charge, they're wanting to do the same thing in some ways too. It goes back and forth. And anybody who tells me that I'm wrong, well, you're full of shit. uh, but anyway, yeah. As I said, you had the Christian right, which has always been here. I mean, the Christian right, the earliest traces of the Christian right, I would say maybe would be the 1970s, for what I could tell, because that's when you started to seeing the TV evangelists on TV, and they're crusading against the ERA, crusading against abortion rights, crusading against what they think would be equality for homosexuals and lesbians. Ooh, that sort of thing, or taking prayer out of school, turning America into a godless, secular humanist cesspool. And you had that kind of point of view over the years, and what groups like the Moral Majority with Jerry Falwell, and the Christian Coalition with Pat Robertson, and existing today with people like John Hagee. What they're advocating is authoritarian to the core. Not the fact that they're Christians, not even the fact that they're evangelical Christians per se, but they are taking their very narrow interpretation of the scripture and want to use that and to enact Christian Sharia against the rest of America. And and those who believes in pluralism and democracy and secular society, they're not wrong to oppose the religious right in that regard. And you got the anti-communist crusades that taken place. Always been, since the Soviet Union, been a thing since 1918. Um, Even with the fall of communism in 1991, you still had people that wanted to bring back that McCarthyism rage of the 1950s. And so they smeared Bill Clinton in the 1990s, who governed to the right of Richard Nixon. They smear him as a socialist and a communist. Same thing. They did that to Al Gore. They did that to John Kerry. They definitely did that to Barack Obama. They did that to Hillary Clinton, and they're doing that now to Joe Biden. And so, all these right wing people who get offended when they're called fascist or called Nazi or whatever, and a lot of it that's being done by the left is over the top. But you know what? It's just as over the top when the Republicans and the right wing call their political opponents socialists or communists. It's kind of always, to me, it kind of reminded me of, well, everything I hate is socialism. Everything I hate is communism. If I go and stump my toe on the bedpost when I get up in the morning, with that's socialism. Or if I get a headache, that's socialism. That's how these people think. My gosh. Now you have soft and hard white nationalism. And what I mean by soft and white and hard white nationalism is you had, we're going to start with the hard white nationalism, the institution of slavery, Jim Crow after the Civil War, up to the rights of the time of the Civil Rights Movement, and even after that, with the Southern strategy that the Republicans kind of manipulated in the late '60s, early '70s, where a lot of Jim Crow Democrats became the ideological bedrock of today's Republican Party. It went from a hard white nationalism to a soft white nationalism. So yeah, yeah, hard white nationalism would be something like I don't know, George Lincoln Rockwell, William Luther Pierce, Tom Metzger, David Duke, Willis Carto. Those people will be what I would call hard white nationalists. Then you get to your softer white nationalism, and that softer white nationalism translates into Jesse Helms, Strom Thurmond, Pat Buchanan, you know, even Rush Limbaugh, and I would say Donald Trump. I would say they're what you would call your soft white nationalists. I mean, they they if they could wave a magic wand and make black and brown people magically disappear, they would. But there's something in them that are like they know it's wrong to be the degree of haters that they are. So they they're what little bit of conscience they may have is a kind of a limiting feature in their worldview that they'll just not quite go there. And frankly, with some of them, they're afraid that they will be canceled if they are very bold in what they want to do. Homophobia. Now, while I'm hearing religious conservatives today, crying and bemoaning about the Christian baker, he refused to make a cake for a same-sex couple, or down in Kentucky, refusing the registers of deeds refusing to grant a license to a same-sex couple. Oh, that is oppressive. That is oppressive. You're just attacking Christians. Well, here's the thing. There was a time where being homosexual, being lesbian, being bisexual, being transgender, uh, it could have meant at best being ostracized, and at worst, it could have meant you being brutally murdered and the murderers getting away with this sort of thing. Um, it, even in the year 2021, now I'm remembering it not that long ago, where just if somebody acted just a little, if even if a straight male acted a little effeminate or what have you, people just assumed the worst and they would be bullied because people think that person, they think that person is gay. And if somebody is gay, this is like the 1980s, folks. If you think somebody is gay in high school, well, that person is to be targeted and be harassed and everything like that. You just suspect, and somebody's not even bothering anybody, not doing it, just minding their own business, and all you have to do is just suspect that somebody is. It will be bully time for whoever is being bullied, whether they're gay or whether they're not gay, or just kind of act a little different from other people. Now, I remember my first year East Carolina, the conversation will come up. This is like 1991. and conversation come up about gay people in general, and it was kind of like you could tell who was the liberal and conservative. If you were, conservatives are like, gay people, ooh, uh, they're disgusting. That's how they were acting. But if you could tell who the liberal was, the conversation came up, and it's like, oh, gay people. Oh, I don't care if somebody's gay. If they want to be gay, that's okay. I don't care. It's all good. And then that conservative person will hear somebody make an indifferent remark about people being gay and be like, "What are you? Some kind of a liberal weirdo? You don't care that somebody's gay? What are you? Some kind of left wing nut job?" That's how it used to be. It wasn't that long ago, and so people actually thought on the right that discrimination against gays was a okay. It was all right. It was positive to them, and once people found out how was it was really just a shitty thing to do to fault somebody for being gay or just merely existing, all of a sudden they changed their tactics. Well, we're not saying that they don't have any rights, even though we don't think they have any rights. We're just opposed to special rights. Well, to these people, special rights means equality. I mean, I mean, it just goes, that they know that is unacceptable, and and there's been improvement on the conservative camp on the issue of the LGBTQ equality. I Thanks to some of the libertarian mindset that I run across in some conservative circles, that they've been pretty good on the issue of LGBTQ equality, and I even think that they're sincere. They are sincere about it. So, but anyway, so then there's the more benign social issues like video games, movies, music, that sort of thing. And here's where it gets bipartisan. During the 1980s, I remember this growing up, that you had groups like the PMRC, which was Tipper Gore and people from the religious right getting together to go and put a stop to heavy metal lyrics and of supposed Satanism and suicide and murder in their lyrics, or the graphic sex that's talked about in a lot of rap music that existed, and the artwork on some album covers, like I cannot think. I'm a Dead Kennedys fan, but I cannot think of the name of the Dead Kennedys album that right offhand that was controversial in the mid 1980s. But anyway, that album cover, I believe, got banned, and they had to go and do a lawsuit, that sort of thing. But the thing about it is that it's always been with us, folks, the cancel culture. And I just pointed out where the cancel culture existed on the right, and a lot of cases it still exists to this day. And this is why I oppose cancel culture, no matter who is doing it, because I think that we're all human beings, and whether you're on the left, you're on the right, or you don't have an ideology, or you're a generic milquetoast centrist, as you made an off-color joke about something that was disturbing, should you lose your job for what you may have said in private? No, no, I really don't think you should lose your job or your way of life. But the thing about it is that while I do think that boycotting, Chick-fil-A, or boycotting, doing everything you can to boycott conservative talk show hosts, like the late Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or Tucker Carlson. While I kind of think it's pointless to do that, the thing about it is you had the right that did that, with the Dixie Chicks when they said some mean things about George W. Bush. It wasn't all that mean, people, but mean things about George W. Bush and the Iraq War. You had right wing people wanting to boycott the Dixie Chicks. You even had right wing people wanting to boycott anything made in France because The French were correct about the Iraq War. They were like, America, you're going to be sorry you go into Iraq. We're not going to help you because we know what's going to happen. And guess what? The one thing where a lot of conservatives have to even admit that the so-called libtards were correct was the damn Iraq War. Um, because you find very few people on the right today supporting that Iraq War. In fact, it's quite beautiful to see the right turn against Liz Cheney of Wyoming because she's a bloodthirsty ghoul, like daughter, like dad, like Daddy Dick Cheney. Of course, with Dick Cheney, I think he should be behind bars right now because he's a fucking war criminal. Let's see here. But the thing about it is that I do think cancel culture it can go a little it's a little over the top. I don't care who's doing it. And when I hear Glenn Danzig from the Misfits, basically talking about cancel culture, what have you, I'm like, goodness gracious, dude, be a grown man. You're Misfits, and I love the Misfits, by the way. I'm not so much a fan of Danzig as a solo artist, because nothing against metal. I'm just not as privy toward the metal style he did as a solo artist. But I did like the Misfits because I'm in a lot of ways I'm a 52-year-old punk rocker. Um, but the thing about it is, the Misfits came along at a time, and when punk came up to be a thing in the 1970s and the 80s, that was you talk about people who wanted to cancel culture. That I'll give you a personal experience. When I was in the middle school in the early 80s, they specify maybe that was 1981, 82, and 83. So I was there from 81 to 84. But the point I was trying to say, fall of 81 to the spring of 84, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. They had punk rock day each once a year because they didn't want to encourage the kids to dress punk rock all the time. And boy, when they did the punk rock days, they were over the board. And you know what? I was listening to punk rock at the time, and I was just thinking to myself, these kids don't even listen to punk rock. Look how they're dressed. So they with some of the garb they were wearing and things like that, their attire, and I just dressed as myself, and I didn't get banned because I was more of a new wave person in some ways or post punk, so it was a little more subdued the way I was dressing. But the point I'm trying to make is that that sort of thing, kind of existed, and there was a cancel culture and a cultural bias against the punk rock subculture. I'll give you an example. When you watch movies like The Class of 1984, with what was Van Patten? What's the name of Dick Van Patten's son in the movie? I cannot think of his name. His name was Van Patten. He was the leader of a gang of punk rock Nazi types that were scourged at Lincoln High. And Ronnie McDowell was in the movie, and so it says the movie it was Michael J. Fox's earliest role. He was a nerdy kid in the movie. Came out in 19 early 82. Movie was about the class of 1984, and the punk rock gang were vilified, and it was like that in a lot of comedies, a lot of movies, situations. You had the punk rock subculture vilified back then, and because they were the anti-establishment, and they were the people that were considered edgy and badass, what have you, and that's kind of what happened there. So when it comes to this cancel culture, it ain't nothing new under the sun. Okay, and for me, this is my approach. I'm a free speech absolutist. You hear me say that at the end of each video that I'm a free speech absolutist because free speech should be there. And I'm selfish. I support free speech for selfish reasons. And I'm willing to pay a small price and allow people who I extremely disagree with Allow them to have their point of view, because if we don't stand by our principles of being for free speech, one day the censorship will be turned against, the tables will be turned against the left, and it's already happening. I mean, you look at some of these YouTube channels. The Amazing Atheist, T.J. Kirk, a real good guy. I love his content. He's been very political lately, and really good stuff. I always like the Amazing Atheist. He had over 1 million subscribers. All of a sudden, in the last 2 or 3 months, he went from 1.1 million subscribers down to 191,000. Something's wrong with that picture. He's being shadow banned, and they're doing that against him because he's saying his content is borderline. It was considered borderline. Kyle Kalinske also, his content is being considered borderline, and he should be over 1 million subscribers by now. But right now he's at 961,000. And the point I'm trying to make is that again, he the algorithms they're working at, trying to to silence him. Jimmy Dore can't get over 860,000. I mean, it's just, you look across the board. But to hear Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder, they're the ones being discriminated. They're trying to get the conservatives off of YouTube. They're trying to get the conservatives banned from radio. Ah! No, that's not the case. That is not the case. I think that YouTube would rather get rid of the Amazing Atheist, and they would rather get rid of Kyle Kalinske, and they would rather get rid of Jimmy Dore, and they would rather get rid of whomever than over Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro or Candace Owens, because that they're adhere to corporate America, whereas Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kalinske, Amazing Atheists are not going to adhere to corporate America. So it comes down to where the money is, and that's where you're seeing things. Even on the issue of Gaza right now in Israel, the war that's going on, people getting politically correct about it. So here's the thing: Jews and Palestinians are both equal, because they're both people are human beings. Um, there's nothing wrong with being Jewish, and there's nothing wrong with being Palestinian. Um, Israel is a strong country, a relatively prosperous country, versus what happens in Gaza with no infrastructure, no water or electricity being allowed to flow in. Um, People being treated like, people just living in squalor and in poverty. And that's because the Israeli government is doing that against these people. Now, do I like Hamas? No, I don't like Hamas. Hamas was created by the Mossad. It was the purpose of creating Hamas was to have a radical Islamic grouping to to try to destroy the PLO from within, and to get rid of the secular leftism that the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, was having, and to substitute it with radical fundamentalist Islam. So pan-Arab nationalism, would not become a thing within the Palestinian side, but religious fundamentalism will replace it. Well, here's the thing: with the Israelis, when Palestinian, excuse me, when Hamas fires a backyard firecracker, because that's what it's an equivalent to. They virtually have no military, and one Israeli die. Yes, one Israeli dying is one Israeli too many. But at the same time, 100 Palestinians being killed by the mighty Israeli army will also be 100 Palestinians too many. Okay, so and you're talking about somebody who used to be a die-hard supporter of Israel, and the thing about it is, I have to go and stop lying to myself about yeah, about Israel being the only democracy in the Middle East. You could have made an argument years ago about that, but it's now sliding toward theocracy. And so, because it's sliding toward theocracy, this is why you have pieces of shit like Benjamin Netanyahu, who's the prime minister. But if you dare speak the truth, you got people on the religious right who don't give a damn about Jews. And then you got, neocons like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and people like that. They'll be screaming, anti Semite, anti Semite, anti Semite. They would be doing that. Yet they look the other way when Marjorie Taylor Greene says that a Jewish satellite from outer space is shooting lasers into the California forest, causing fires. I guess that's okay in these people's eyes. But the point I'm trying to make is that you take any subject and turn it around and make a culture war issue and denounce people and do the whole cancel culture thing that's being done on the issue with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict going on in Gaza right now. Because I can guarantee you, all the people who are corrected to criticize Israel as the aggressor in this particular case, they're being accused of being anti-Semitic. Ain't no such a thing. And if somebody's being anti-Semitic, I don't care how correct they may be on the Israel Gaza war that's going on. If they want to use this just to shit on Jewish people, then those particular people who are anti-Semitic can fuck off. But most of the people who calls bullshit on Israel, doing this against the people of Gaza, has nothing to do with quote unquote hating Jews. And I can guarantee you, most of the people who criticize Israel for what they're doing against the people of Gaza, majority of them do not have a problem with Jews. Majority of them are actually pretty damn cool with Jews. Anyway, enough about this and the cancel culture thing. I'm a little bit tired. So let me just sum up by saying, if you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with me, well, comment anyway. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you that if you're passionate about something, create a platform, because we're the muckrakers of our time. And of course, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell to this channel. And until next time, I am American Social Democracy. Class struggle today, class struggle tomorrow, class struggle until we achieve full economic and social justice for all. Peace.